Greetings, salutations, and all good things in between. What's up, everyone? Matt here. If you've been on your My Apps page, you may have noticed there's a new element up there, a little toggle that says Databases. AppSheet's released this new feature for public preview, and I had the lucky opportunity to sit down with Shirley, a product manager at AppSheet working on the Databases team, to discuss this new feature a little bit. Let's take a look. Okay, and with me today, I have Shirley. She is the person that made the official announcement in the community. Thanks for joining us, Shirley.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're streaming in from, but great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So just to really kind of dive in and just give us kind of like a high level summary about what this new feature is, where we think it's, where you intend it to go, and just some high level basics type stuff. But before we get to that, maybe introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do over there at Google and AppSheet.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a product manager on the team. I was actually from Toronto, so I grew up in Canada, and then I moved to the States for work. And I've been at AppSheet actually since January, so it hasn't been too long, but things have definitely been fast-paced and fun. I'm really aligned with AppSheet's mission of empowering not just developers to make applications and automate solutions. So that's really what drawn me to the team.
The database thing, right? So could you give us like maybe a summary of like what prompted all of this to come about?
Yeah, so about probably a year ago, over a year ago, we were kind of doing some user research on, what can we do to help make app creators more successful? What are some of the pain points they have? And then also just look into the general no-code citizen developer market right now. And we found a gap within our platform. And basically, before our AppSheet-Databases, we didn't have a native database, and we didn't have one that was suitable for citizen developers. Because you have Google Sheets, which is really easy to use, it's unstructured, but really easy to manipulate. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have something like Firebase or a SQL database that's a little more complex, takes more time to set up. So we found that there's a gap in that spectrum of what's being offered today, and we wanted to fill that with AppSheet-Database.
If we go to like the database maintenance side of things, right? So if you have like a SQL server, there's all kinds of like maintenance types of things that you can do, and then like performance monitoring and upgrades and things. So I'm curious, is there anything of that that's going to be kind of taken care of for us in the back end?
Yeah, I would say for that, like database maintenance stuff, we lean more towards the Sheets side of the spectrum. Okay. In the spectrum that we discussed before. There is ability to perform performance analysis or do audits and to see like what kind of actions have been done on your database. But in kind of the general sense, we lean more towards Sheets as a very simple rudimentary database in that sense.
How big of a database are we talking here? I noticed there's some limits that are put on it now while it's in the preview. But when it goes into general release, like how big of a database are we talking that we could use this solution for?
Yeah, so the reason we set limits during public preview is because we want to make sure that we're doing sufficient testing, and we're still adding features to the database too. We're still making performance optimizations and stuff like that. So we're trying to kind of keep the public preview contained so that we can really understand how big or what limits we want to choose for general release. And that really depends on the use cases too that people are using this database for. We know that enterprise customers have different needs, so they probably need a larger database versus maybe a small and medium business. So we really need your feedback here to understand, like, are the limits we have right now severely low? Are they not going to suit your use case? Or what kind of limits are you looking for when we release to the general public?
Yeah, I can see how this is really going to be like a synergistic type thing moving forward.
So yeah, for sure. Like Even for not just the size of the database, but features too, like if there are certain friction or questions or frustrations you have with the user interface, we definitely want to hear about that as well. And I'm sure the community and viewers here too will help us improve this over time so that we can make sure all app creators are successful.
So just thinking about, future expandability of this feature, we're talking about, database instances and things of this nature. Will we be able to connect to these database instances using other kind of third-party software? Like, you can connect to a SQL server. There's a host of different programs you can use to connect to it. Will we be able to do something similar here?
Yeah, so this kind of relates back to the AppSheet platform. So as you know, like the AppSheet platform has many different connectors. You can pull in data from other sources like Salesforce. So you could still use all of AppSheet's connectors to kind of connect your database and your app to those places. And using AppSheet automation, you can also trigger app script functions too. So I know that's been also a popular question. So you could use something like AppSheet automation to trigger some AppSheet app script project that you create based on an action from your database, and then also write back to your database as well. And then finally, since AppSheet-Databases is part of the AppSheet platform, you can use the AppSheet API to read and write from the database directly.
How will sync time compare?
Mhm.
Because you mentioned that this is like an in AppSheet thing. Versus like Google Sheets where, there's a Google Sheet API that there's all this like loop that has to happen. Could we expect sync time to be a little shorter here or maybe variably the same, I guess?
Yeah, that's definitely one of our goals. Performance is very top of mind for us, and we know, if this is something that's integrated in AppSheet, there is expectation this works great for AppSheet apps
Right.
specifically. So for now, we have enabled something that does speed up syncing for apps. So we have enabled that for our databases. It's coming to Sheets in the future too, but for now we started with databases. But yes, the goal is to be more performance than Sheets, especially for larger data sets too. So yeah, we are continuously trying to improve our performance, definitely before GA. So would love to see over time too if our users notice that change.
A little teaser there, a little thing coming for Google Sheets. Ooh. One question somebody asked was, are there any data types that aren't supported? I went through and I looked at the list of the column types in there, and it looked like it was basically the same list of column types in AppSheet.
Exactly. Yeah. So the main goal with AppSheet Database is to support, AppSheet app creators. So all the column types you see there are the ones that are also available for AppSheet apps. We've thrown in a couple of new ones or some that are more specific to the database specifically, like a enum of dropdown type or a enum of tags. So there are a couple of differences, but in general, we do want to support all of the AppSheet types inside the database as well.
Fair enough. And so like, what about like the actual files? If somebody uploads, say, a file type or like an image or something like that, are they stored in the database or somewhere else?
Yeah, so they're not stored in the database. Basically, what you're doing when you try to link file attachments, such as like signatures, videos, or images, you're really just linking the URL to them or the file path to them. So it's very similar to when you're building an app using Sheets as a data source. You would write or put in the file path of your file into the cell. Yeah, so we're not hosting your files. Your files are probably hosted in something like Google Drive, or if it's a video, maybe YouTube. Yeah.
That makes sense. Somebody was asking, like, would we be able to modify things using an app script? But you already kind of talked about that. I think what they were specifically asking was, will we be able to modify, like, the database? Could I add a column to the database using a script or something?
Yeah, no. And yeah, for that, I think the AppSheet API is kind of limited in that sense, where it's more like reading and writing rows, not necessarily like creating new columns or tables.
Right. Same thing along the lines, just like if you're working with a Google Sheet, like you can't add a column and do all of that stuff. Same thing. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. This seems like it's going to be a great addition to the AppSheet ecosphere. When do you guys plan on this coming out for general release?
Yeah, so right now we're targeting early next year. That really depends on the feedback that we get, the kind of requests that we get from customers as well on what needs to be done before we release. So a little TBD on feedback, but we're really, really hoping beginning of next year is when we can release this to the general public.
It'd be exciting when this comes out. If people wanted to learn more about this and be able and stay in the know about what's going on, where could they find out?
Yeah, so I would say our release notes on the AppSheet community is probably the key place where you'll find out not just about this feature, but other features too, what's rolling out, what are some fixes that are coming out, so release notes. The second place would be just the AppSheet community in general. Other PMs will be making posts too for other launches. And then check out a little bit of our Workspace blog. So Google Cloud and Workspace also have their blogs. We'll be sharing some information there as well. And then lastly, the AppSheet YouTube channel. We will hopefully get some demo videos up there too, so that people can see the AppSheet database in action.
All right. Well, this is fantastic. Shirley, I want to thank you for joining, giving us all of this information. I know it's going to help a lot of people. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, see you in the community.
Yes, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So that happened earlier this week. Huge shout out and thanks to Shirley for taking the time out of her busy schedule to hop on that video chat and answer a few questions. If you haven't had the opportunity to peruse what this new feature is all about, if you go to the announcement, there's a lot of really good information on here about it. And if you go to your My Apps page, this is where you're probably going to see, it's right up here, there's this new toggle for you that says databases. And if you go to that, it's where you can create your first database. So if I just kind of hop in here and make one really quick, we can kind of look and see what this is all about. So there's a lot going on here. It's actually pretty cool if you ask me. I kind of like what's going on here. Just like Shirley said, it's kind of like a middle ground between a Google Sheet, which is just kind of like no man's land. You can do whatever you want over there. It's completely unstructured, versus a SQL server where things are much more restrictive. You know what I mean? This is like a nice middle ground where it's a little flexible, but it's a little restrictive. It'd be interesting to see what comes out of this. But you can see, we've got the different columns here. If I want to add a column, right? And if we look at the types, just like I was saying earlier, everything inside here is basically the exact same. I'm wondering where, she mentioned a different enum type of like tags or something. To explore that later. But anyways, so if we just want to, if I just go over some of the high level things that you can do here. Let's see, yeah, there we go. Zoom in a little bit. So one of the real nice things that I've noticed that they have here is they have different ways of viewing the data in your database, right? So like this is the grid view, which is basically a table. But they also have a Kanban. They also have a calendar, a queue, and if you've got map stuff, you could do a map too. So like if we look at the Kanban, this is actually kind of nice, right? Being able to view something like this, it's not bad. And then you can obviously, move things around and do a whole bunch of different things with this. You got a calendar view where if there's a date, right? We can do the queue layout where it's got the rows over here and like it's almost like a detail view over here. You can do lots of fun little stuff. So like if I go to the status and if you double click on the header up here, you can get into this little edit field. And I can even change like the progress is not started. Like I can make that red and progress is green and completed is gray, and then like when you do stuff like this, the Kanban's kind of starting to look kind of cool, and the calendar's kind of looking kind of cool. So anyways, there's some fun stuff that you can do on here. Like we're grouping based on status, but you can do other things if you want. You can configure this detail view. You can put a filter on it. You can sort it. The thing that I saw that I thought was really, really kind of cool is once you get a view that you like, you can save that view, and then you can reuse that again. That'd be pretty dope. It'd be really cool to be able to see the ability to share a view. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, that's a really dope setup that somebody made. I wish I had that. It'd be cool if I could import that. But yeah, this is the basics of what's going on here. You got like, this is your list of your columns over here, and I can reorder them and do things. You can click on the apps and it will show you what apps are connected to the table. That's pretty fun, and like link right to it so you can open it. Yeah, lots of stuff, right? But this is obviously still very new. It's very early days, right? But I kind of feel that this is going to fill a gap for a lot of people out there where they're looking for something that's a little more structured and how to put it together, because, you know, going over to Google Sheets and just kind of doing whatever you want over there, you know, you can, anyways, yeah. So let me know what you guys think about this new feature. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you wish was in it? Seems like this is going to be a really cool looking thing. But that is the big news of this week. We've got this new database thing to play with. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. There was another major announcement this week.